The thing that people talk about is the connections with you guys and worldwide. How do you develop that skill set?
I'm not sure. I think I always wanted to be myself.
And I would imagine that helps these connections that you have literally, worldwide, as represented by the whole Yoan pursuit this summer.
As luck has it, one of my closest friends in basketball is the assistant coach there. He and I had worked. He was our consultant in Orlando.
In where? Where is this? Where is your closest friend? What city is it?
He in Ljubljana, Slovenia.
Yeah.
And he
That's crazy.
Since you got here, Finch has been here. So like, how has that relationship been between, as they kind of call it, the guys up there and then the guys on the court?
Yeah, I think it's one of the best I've experienced in 30 years in the NBA.
I'm sure there's healthy arguing going on there, but it's like, once we leave, like, yeah, this is what we're doing.
Yep,
we're playing this player, we're drafting this guy, we're signing this guy, whatever.
Yep. Tim is like a rabid competitor.
I feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. So we are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming in Monday morning. It's November 17th. And coming up on today's show, we are going to be joined by Wolves general manager Matt Lloyd. Kyle and I recorded this with Matt over the weekend when Kyle was in town covering the two games. And yeah, I'm just really excited for you all to be able to hear it. We start the episode out with Matt's background. He has a cool winding path into working in pro sports that goes back many years to when he met Tim Connelly for the first time and kind of began his connection that eventually brought him to the Timberwolves. After his background, we do kind of get into the current players on the Wolves roster. Matt obviously knows these guys all really well, but I do think it's helpful that he has the background of having kind of scouted every one of these guys years or maybe even a decade ago when they were in high school and kind of coming up in the ranks of being a draft prospect. I think it's always good to get some perspective from someone who obviously knows these players far better than we do. Honestly, we hit a lot of different things during the episode, from fantasy football to the second apron. Very grateful that Matt was willing to give us an hour of his time on a game night. I really do think you'll like this one. Kyle and I with Matt Lloyd coming up next. Let's go. All right, we are now joined by the general manager of the Minnesota Timberwolves, Matt Lloyd. Thank you for making this happen. We're really glad to have you here in the studio. Welcome.
I'm really excited to be here. I actually just caught a vision of my own face on the monitor, and I didn't realize it. I thought it was Casper the Friendly Ghost was in here. So I apologize to everyone watching that I didn't cake up before I got on.
You look great.
Appreciate it.
We're glad to have you here. So you have what I think is fair to say a non-traditional path into becoming a general manager in an NBA front office. You weren't a former professional basketball player.
Did not play professional basketball. No.
Yeah. So it's you've taken a path through the communications department kind of into pro sports. We just wanted to kind of start a little bit with who you are and what your background is.
Yeah, like we were joking before we hit record, there's no Wikipedia page for you, so that's probably intentional. So I had to do some real digging, but the first thing that kind of comes up when you dig into your story is you're a native Chicagoan. We can talk about Vikings Bears on Sunday if you want later, but like, how did you get into working for the Bulls? There was a little overlap there with another famous two guard at the time. We can talk about that. But like, how did you get into sports? How did you get into the NBA? And then how did you end up in this studio here this afternoon?
Yeah, well, I drove here from my house. So
okay,
just
that's a good answer for that one.
The story is fun and interesting and maybe not as applicable anymore as it may have been back then, because at the time, there wasn't like a lot of people trying to get into pro sports necessarily in these types of roles. I don't think it was something that people aspired to. They just kind of moved into that direction. I would have been super happy being the basketball coach of my high school. It would have been, as I was a sophomore in college and trying to really figure out what I wanted to do. My high school basketball coach was kind of influential in my life just because he was such a big leader, and so I really looked up to him, and I was not good. I did not set any records. I didn't do anything spectacular.
Neither did we.
Yeah, well, but I was particularly bad. But I tried hard. I tried hard, and in my sophomore year, the coach said that there's I got like the Hustle Award. And he said, when they were awarding all this stuff, that he said, there's no one in the room right now that studies basketball more than him. And I was like, wow, that was actually kind of a compliment. Mm-hmm. And so I went to college and I kind of like bounced around college and didn't really know what to do. And I just backdoored my way into a job in the sports information department. And that led to really servicing the men's basketball team at my alma mater at Illinois Chicago in many ways. And like, for example, Timberwolves related, in 1995, I was a junior and they asked me to help out. They were having an NBA pre-draft workout in the practice facility, and it was Kevin Garnett. And he had gone to high school. He was a senior in high school there. And I was standing there just in awe of all the NBA people that were in there who I knew who they were at the time, but I'm not sure they had the same level of fame they do now. Like
Sure.
my Tim Connelly is famous. We go out to lunch or go out to dinner and people know him and know who he is. I'm not sure it was the same in 1995. So I just kind of muddled along, and a friend of mine from high school was tasked with the job of building the video room for the Bulls and the White Sox. And he knew how passionate I was about basketball and asked me to come work at the games. And so I worked at the White Sox games in the winter, and in the summer, and then winter I worked at the Bulls games, and just kind of like hung in there for 4 years. I was getting paid very little. I graduated.
Are you like early 20s?
Yeah, I was probably 21.
Oh,
Okay.
I was a junior in college, made $0 basically, was working every home event at UIC. There was a CBA team called the Chicago Rockers that played in our arena. I worked every single one of those games for 2 seasons. So I was just trying to like make it. And again, like just with the specific intention of being a high school basketball coach.
That was the aim?
Yeah. And so I got on with the Bulls, and we were lucky. It was pre-video digital editing equipment. We were using VCR tapes, and for all intents and purposes, this guy from like my hometown, he built a digital video editing equipment out of nothing and started utilizing it for both the Bulls and the White Sox. I learned it. Jerry Krause was the GM of the Bulls at the time, and he would ask for projects. And when we would turn him in, he would give us feedback, and he was always really gracious and nice. And I had worked there 4 years, and it was starting to be like time to make some like money. I had to get a job, and there was a job opened up in the PR department, and I was a communications major in college. I had the sports information background in college, and my senior year in college, the first semester I had gone and done an internship at ESPN in the communications department in Connecticut. January 1, I drove out there. I stayed there till June like 30th, around that time. The Bulls were in the playoffs, in the finals, and I got to work the finals again. Because I had been working there in the video room the whole time. And so a job came open in the PR department for the 99-2000 season. And I worked in the PR department for 2 seasons and then got hired full-time in basketball operations after that.
Do you know of other people who have taken that path, like of your colleagues or executives around the league who have started just in the comms?
Yeah,
side
David
of
Griffin was the GM of the.
that's right.
He worked in PR for the Phoenix Suns. My first full-time day job, was working in the league office at Arena Football. It was in Chicago, and the 1996 championship game was in Phoenix, and I got paired with David Griffin, who was working the PR department for the Phoenix Suns at the time, and. So Tommy Shepard was a PR person for the Denver Nuggets.
Sure.
Andy Ellisberg for the Miami Heat worked in the PR department initially.
He's the big cap guy now.
Yeah, he's the GM. He's the GM. I'm sure there's others. I don't really know. It's something I'm actually very proud of. The job was great for me because I just was so involved with information and stats. And John Paxson was the radio guy when I worked there for 2 years. So I sat across from him on the plane for 2 seasons, traveling. And he took to me. And when he got the job as the GM, Jerry Krause had said he wanted to bring me over to be a scout. And then he resigned, he retired. And John said, I know that was going to happen, and I'd like you to come and work for me. So it was all just kismet. I think sometimes when I got my foot in the door, and I just kind of kept my foot in the door through enthusiasm and energy and just being willing to do anything. My first year working in basketball operations, they said, hey, we want to build a database. Can you do that? And I said, yeah, no problem. Easy. I had no idea what to do. I went back to my office and I was terrified. And called a bunch of people, and sure enough, we built a template that a lot of teams still use today. They sold it, they marketed it, they built it. It was the Real GM scouting database, but it was the foundation was built in that office in the Berto Center in Chicago.
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, it's cool.
It makes me feel better that like you have a really cool job, a dream job, but you also succumb to like it says here you're prolific in PowerPoint. It's like, oh shit, I actually have to like make PowerPoints if you hire me. So,
Exactly.
So that was like the director of college scouting. That's how you got to that. And then at some point you pivot down to Orlando, where you were there for, I think, like 10 years?
I was there for 10 seasons.
Before you came up here. So how did you get from Chicago, which was home for you, down to a completely new area? But that's when you became like an assistant general manager. Like, how did that transition take place? And what was some of the memories from being in Orlando?
Yeah, I think I started scouting relatively early when I got over to the Berto Center and into basketball operations. And my like first initial thing, I was, helping with the credentialing and the scheduling and still compiling all the video and working in, because I had video experience. I could slap edits together real quick, and they all liked that. So they asked me, maybe my second or third year in basketball operations, hey, we want you to cover the CBA. That was the precursor to the G League. And we had a team in Rockford, Illinois, and there was a team in Gary, Indiana. There was no affiliations. There was no assigning. There was no, it's like legally, but so I went to every Rockford Lightning game and every Gary Steelheads home game. And for the whole season, put together
what names?
Yeah, great league. Just a bunch of renegades. It was so cool. And I met Tim Connelly at the CBA All-Star game that year.
What year is that?
1990. Probably 2004.
Got it. Okay.
And then I met him, was introduced to him, and then the next season, he and I sat next to each other at a DePaul game and just decided to go out. So Rob Hennigan was named the GM of the Orlando Magic. He's with Oklahoma City now. So we had the fortune of playing them in the conference finals last year. So it was really a kind of a cool moment for both of us. But Rob got hired as the GM, and I remembered what it was like to be on the road scouting and really not know anyone. And I saw this guy sitting there at the Tournament of the Americas in San Antonio. Don't remember what year it was, but Michael Beasley was on the team. Kyle Singler was on the team, that draft class. They were all seniors in high school. And I went up and sat next to him and sat down and started talking to him because I remember how that felt. It was like my fourth year scouting, roughly. And it was Rob. And we hit it off. He got the job as the GM. And then really it was a hard call because in Chicago we were starting. We had just gone to the conference finals the year before. Derrick Rose had gotten injured in the first round against Philly that season. Sure. And we were like on a collision course with the Miami Heat that year. And I really liked my job. Yeah. I sat in my office, and basically there was maybe 4 or 5 of us in the front office. I sat in my office. I did my schedule. I went out and scouted. And like around January or February, John Paxson, Gar Foreman would come and say, "Hey, who should we go see?" I would kind of help steer them in that direction. And then, we made several great picks from 15 down. Nico Mirotic, Jimmy Butler. Going backwards, we had drafted Chris Duhon in the second round, and he was our starting point guard. So I'm not saying that was me. That was all Gar and John. They were tasked with having made those decisions. But the experience I gained doing that reminded me when I saw Rob there sitting and knowing, so, and there wasn't many people our age. So Rob got the job, and I decided to go, and it was kind of a leap of faith. And I think we had things going for the first 3 or 4 seasons. Year 5 went off the track, off the rails. Rob gets let go. I was named the interim GM for 2 months, and then Jeff Weltman and John Hammond came in, and they're still there today. So, and then when Tim got the president's job here, he asked me to come with him.
Well, that helps us because we didn't know the Tim Connelly connection before this. So I was like, how did you meet Tim originally? And again, it's kind of, I would imagine in that role and as you're building and climbing the ladder, a lot of it's just like networking of just like having, shooting your shot, like having the confidence. I'm just going to go talk to that person because who knows down the road. I mean, you said 2001 or something. That was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you find yourself here working with Tim.
Yeah, he and I were sitting next to each other at a DePaul game, and he had just gotten promoted that's off season to like the assistant director of player personnel.
He's with the Wizards.
He was at the Wizards at the time. And I happened to mention, I said, "Hey man, like congrats on the promotion." I just had seen it. Yeah. And I think it was like surprised him. So that night we went out on the town in Chicago and really kind of hit it off. We are, I'm like so grateful for him. I mean, just for the opportunity to come here and literally it's not just a great coworker. I get to go into the office with talk to my best friend, one of my best friends every day, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, really grateful for him. We met, we hit it off and traveled together for several years. He got the Denver job a year after I went to Orlando. And to watch his rise and watch him build, you know, his brand within the NBA has been really cool.
That has to be cool of like your friends in the industry to like
Yep.
see, you know, when you start at such a low spot to, okay, he's running a team here 15 years later. I
Yep.
was sitting next to him at a random.
Yeah, we one summer we decided to meet in Chicago because the old NBA, you know, once summer league ended, people were off.
Yeah.
You know, it was vacation time, and we all met in Chicago, like 4, 5, 6 of us, and of that group, I think, you know, 7 of them, or maybe there was like 7 guys of that group. 6 people ascended to become GMs in the NBA at some
Sweet.
point. Yeah, so pretty neat.
So I text a few different people saying I'm having Matt like on the pod, different some executives I know
Oh,
from
boy.
around the league. No, and I was just, what makes you and Tim good at what you do? And they reference the scouting background, like
Yep.
they get the work that you did the work, you understand how to assess them. But the thing that people talk about is the connections with you guys
Yep.
and worldwide. Is that, how do you develop that skill set?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think I just always just wanted to be myself. I didn't want to try to be something else or put up a front of something other than of the person I was. Because I noticed it early in the NBA. Like there's a lot of egos involved and there's a lot of like aspirations involved in working in the NBA. And
You might have to be careful with that one.
I think
Aspiration,
good
we
point.
probably should just
Good
get that
point.
one down.
We can edit that one out.
Yeah, Cooper, get that one out of there.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
No, but I just wanted to kind of be myself. And that's the story about Rob is probably can be replicated in many ways. As people were coming up and I just tried to get to know everybody. And it wasn't for transactional purposes. It wasn't for intel or background or the ability to be able to call someone. But what has happened over time, and I wasn't a part of any grand scheme or plan or anything, was that, you know, you develop trust-based relationships with people. And like for last night, for example, we're taping this today. We're playing the Sacramento Kings tonight. And the GM of the Kings and I worked together for 5 years in Orlando. He was the assistant GM and I was the other assistant GM, and Scott Perry. And his assistant GM is BJ Armstrong, who I worked with in Chicago. So,
Team, yeah.
So, and I'm not going to stand here and think like I'm not in awe when I go out to dinner with BJ Armstrong. You know, like I watched him play when I was in high school. I watched him hit shots in the finals. I was excited in 1989 when they drafted him. And so I just never wanted to be anyone but myself. And
you are. I mean,
Yeah.
and I've known you for a while, and I've talked to you on the record, or we've interviewed you, and you present yourself one way, and I've talked to you just at games or on the phone, and you are Matt Lloyd. So I guess that would be a lesson to people, you know, trying to do this is just actually be yourself. Because even in the exposure that we have, even in the media space, there's different masks that I think people can wear throughout it. And that's part of the strategy. And frankly, that strategy maybe has worked for other people too. I just think it's cool with you that you seem to be an extremely genuine person. And I would imagine that helps these connections that you have literally, I mean, worldwide, as represented by the whole Yoan pursuit this summer.
Yeah, that's a funny one because you know Dell Demps had gone to France, or I'm sorry, not to France, but he had gone on a tour. Dell Demps works he's the VP of basketball operations. He was the GM of the Pelicans for 9 seasons. He and Tim had worked together, and Tim hired him immediately when we got here too. And he went early last year and toured and saw a bunch of players and prospects. And as we all know, the European landscape is shifting basketball-wise because a lot of the players are coming and playing for NIL money. Illinois has like 5 international players on their team this year. So he was very excited about Yoan. And as luck has it, one of my closest friends in basketball is the assistant coach there. He and I had worked. He was our consultant in Orlando.
In where? Where is this? Where is your closest friend? What city is it?
In Ljubljana, Slovenia. Yeah.
That's crazy.
He's Serbian, and he was our consultant in Orlando for several seasons. because he was out of work. He was a coach, assistant coach, and he had a job. And he's the friendliest, funniest guy. He's got 2 little kids are great. He's worked summer league for us in Orlando, and he worked summer league, I think, with Miami last year. So he's the greatest guy ever. And he called me early in the season, and he's always very energetic, very positive. And, oh, you have to come see this play. He's so good. He's so good. And I kind of took it with a grain of salt. I'm like, okay, I think we covered it. I'll try to make it over there if I can. But it's just how it works. And there was times when I first started scouting, I would go to Marquette practice every single year because it was only 40-minute drive from the Berto Center. Sure. And I remember going the third year and driving back and being like, man, I'm not getting anywhere in this business. Like the coaches, I have to introduce myself over and over and stuff. And the lesson learned there was it just takes time to develop relationships that are real and that are mutually beneficial. And if you take that time and you always get in what you put out, you always get out of it what you put into it. And I just try to put into, the relationships with all these people around the world.
All right, Kyle, let's take a little break from Matt to talk about Monday Night Football this evening. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, and we have Raiders Cowboys this evening. So let's give some people some picks. Give me Brock Bowers to have more than 6 receptions tonight. He plays the Cowboys defense. 2 weeks ago, when Vegas played Jacksonville, Bowers had that huge game, 12 receptions against that defense. So I like him to get 6 tonight, at least 6 tonight. And then I'll go less than 76.5 rushing yards for Javonte Williams. Raiders might be bad as a team, but I'm pretty sure their defense is decent. And I think, this could be a shootout passing type game. What do you got?
Okay, we're going to do all 4 of these in a pick. I had Ashton Genty under 17.5 rushing attempts. Game script, I imagine Cowboys score a lot of points.
Yeah, that's a high number.
Yeah, so he'll get opportunities, but I think they're going to throw a lot. And then CeeDee Lamb, coming off a bye the last 4 years, averages like 130 receiving yards a game. So his number on Monday is 84.5. So give me more than receiving yards, 84.5 for CeeDee Lamb. Put those 4 together. Have a little fun for Monday Night Football.
Always something going on over at Prize Picks. As a reminder, to put together a lineup at Prize Picks, all you need to do is put 2 or more picks in your lineup to win. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, all you have to do is put in the promo code DANE when you sign up, and you will receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code DANE when you create your account.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that Yoan workout? In Chicago. I mean, I'm assuming you were an instrumental piece of that. That workout sounds like it was an instrumental piece of drafting Yoan.
Yeah. So his agent, Yoan's agent is a guy named Jelani Floyd. And Jelani is from Chicago and really has worked his way up the ladder, like ground floor. And he had played college basketball. He's a great guy. And so he and I have had a good relationship. I really liked him from the get-go, Jelani. And he had a player that was just okay. He was a good player. He's gone on to have this really successful career in Europe, and he's had this great post-basketball career. We took him for the summer league in Orlando one year. And I told Jelani, hey, I got no promises if he can play or anything like that, but he'll get the experience. He can put it on his resume, and that'll help him in Europe. The guy actually was great. He was awesome. He was awesome in practice. He contributed in a couple games. So Jelani and I have always had a good relationship. We got the 17th pick from Detroit as part of the trade for Julius and Dante. And we were excited about it. And we didn't know what we were going to do. I had Dell's comments about Yoan and my friend's comments about Yoan in the back of my mind the whole season. And one day in LA, I just decided during the second round of the playoffs, we had
first round.
I'm sorry, first round. We had like a 3-day off period in between.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
For some reason.
We were at the bar. But
yeah. So I sat in the coffee shop and I just said, I'm going to watch Yoan Berenger today and just kind of get to the bottom of this guy. And it was spectacular, some of the stuff he was doing. And you could see his progression over the course of the season, early, middle, and late of the season. So Jelani, when we got 17, he's like, man, look, I love you guys, but he's not getting to 17. He's just not. He's not going to get there. And that's what he should do. Mm-hmm. I can't send him to Minnesota. We only have a small window. He had come over after his season and didn't,
for a workout. Can't send him to Minnesota.
Yeah, he just didn't have time. He didn't have time. And he had to get his combine testing done in Atlanta. And he had to get his medical done somewhere in Europe. And so I said, okay, but just keep us in mind. We really want to get to know this guy. We really like him. We laid out what the vision for him may be. And Jelani called a couple weeks before the draft and said, I can get you in front of him, but you're going to have to travel to do it. And Tim was giddy. He like, let's do it. It's going to be exciting. We'll do it. We flew up there on a Friday, worked him out on a Saturday, and I think everyone was just in awe, and the most awe-striking part was just sitting with him for 30 minutes and getting to know him a little bit and seeing how serious he was and how dedicated he was and learning about his background, his family. We had gathered information about him, but there's nothing that can beat the personal interaction you get.
I think this is a good segue into talking about the Timberwolves roster and like where you are now from Chicago to Orlando to here, but also you mentioned the trade last year before Media Day. Carl shipped out for Julius and Dante in that pick. So I just have to ask you as a fan, which I am, did you watch Pistons games last year and hope they'd win?
No.
Like every night we're like, okay, I got to keep an eye on Detroit to see if they're winning games because we want that pick.
We had big debates about that in the office because we didn't know that Detroit has done such a good job of kind of recalibrating and rebooting their program. We didn't know. I had the intuition that we were going to get it sooner rather than later. Okay. But there was a universe out there in the multiverse where it just turned into second round picks, or 2 second round picks or whatever it eventually turned into.
It's such a fascinating, like there's so many of these sliding doors.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
And like, we don't want to put pressure on Yoan to be the next best player, whatever. We don't know what he's going to be. But if he is what you guys believe he will be, I mean, it will be, I'm sure we'll be doing a podcast in 8 years from now and being like, okay, remember this Detroit out of nowhere, Malik Beasley shot 45% from 3. They made the playoffs. It made it so the Wolves had this 17 pick.
Totally.
Like there's such chaos.
Yeah. And you can't, there's no algorithm that can predict it accurately. There's no quantum computer that can figure out the exact outcome of every single trade. So you have to take the experience that you have, the information that you have, and then kind of match them together and sometimes take some risks. That Detroit pick wasn't necessarily a risk, but if it elicits what we think it's going to elicit eventually, that'll be a part of that trade that'll be talked about for a long time.
I think what I've learned in my time doing this that I wouldn't have had any way of knowing is the role that the connections play in giving you more information to put into this hypothetical algorithm that you have. And so that's why I have this appreciation for what you and Tim and Del are doing as the most connected people. The Jelani, if Jelani's not his agent, like Yoan's probably not.
Don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
It's different.
Yeah.
And I texted Jelani today.
Yep.
And I asked him about you. And so this is credit to you. You're going to hate this, but I'm going to read what he said. Cause I think this is does capture it. He said, working with Matt over the years has been straightforward and productive. He is consistently responsive, transparent, and follows through on what he says he will do. He is one of the best in the league to work with. This past summer was a good example. Coordinating Yoan's workout in Chicago was seamless because Matt was prepared, clear on what he needed, and decisive. He is a true basketball mind who does the work. He is at the arena early. He studies players at every level, and he still knows the landscape across the NBA, college, and even high school. At the same time, he approaches everything with a business discipline that makes negotiations and logistics efficient. Overall, he is a hard worker, a straight shooter, and someone you can trust to operate at a high level.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
It's a bit much. It's a bit much,
but appreciated. It's so nice.
It's just that matters.
Yeah.
That stuff matters, and we could do. Other people in your role and other teams are doing similar things that make that come together. But I have an appreciation for that, and I think it's an inefficiency in the front office game.
I would say that's an unbelievable point to make, and Tim Connelly, like he that is him.
Yeah.
He's
like the GOAT.
He's the GOAT. Yeah, he's first ballot Hall of Fame. He's absolutely and coming here and kind of seeing it on a day-to-day basis has really been I don't know, the right word maybe is intimidating, really, because I thought that my ability to kind of be social and create connection and stuff was good, and then to watch him do it is like it's like watching Michael Jordan or Anthony Edwards.
The best was when you came out to talk to us after draft night. We did media afterwards. You're like, I don't know what Tim Connelly just did. It was crazy.
Yeah.
He was here, he was there, and I don't think he slept in 3 days.
Yeah, that was that 2 drafts ago? That was
I
2
guess the
drafts
Rob
ago.
one.
That was the Dillingham one.
Yeah, the
and
trade
that-
up
it-
out of no. Yeah,
It's we were very hopeful and excited to have the 31st pick in the draft. This past year, the first pick of the second round, we thought, oh my God, this is gonna be great. We'll control the second round. And like, we were on the phone all day with people, just getting feedback. Oh, don't take this guy. Don't take this guy. Don't take. And like, dude, we're going to take whoever we want to take. And, we'll figure it out. But those connections allowed us to have that information over time. And so we did trade back and, we picked up some stuff to replenish the coffers a little bit. And it was very well managed because of his ability to connect dots all over the league.
No Wikipedia page, but the first Google image that pulls up from Matt Lloyd NBA is Matt on his cell phone. So like the connections and like
one cell phone or 2?
No, not Kevin Gates. Just one cell phone. So that's like the perfect segue talking about Yoan into, you talked about when you left the Bulls, they're kind of on the up.
Yeah.
And then in Orlando, I think you dealt with both the up and the down. And then you come here, I think in June of 2022?
It was 2 weeks before that draft where we had gotten the first pick of the draft in Orlando and we were really excited. And, Tim called me that day. Yeah. So it was 2 weeks before the draft.
And then a couple weeks later, you make the Gobert trade. And I always joke like you and Tim hadn't even completed your new employee modules and you already do like this seismic move.
Yeah, I wasn't even getting paid. So I was like, I didn't have health insurance. And we were like, we trade for Rudy Gobert. I'm like, oh gosh, I hope they don't pull that
health insurance.
But what I find fascinating going back to Yoan or even the Rob pick is that you came into something that once again was on the up. Right. But now you find yourself a couple of years later, like the coffers are stacked with young talent. You also have one of the best players in the league. You have like this multi-time Final Four Western Conference team. But there's got to be a really unique balance of how do you kind of balance being a contending team while also, because that's one of the topics right now in the fan base is like, why don't the young guys play more? But you have talented young guys, but you're also trying to win games. And I thought even when Finch was on Zach Lowe the other day, he talked about like, I think young players getting important, like winning minutes is way more valuable than, as he called them, like empty calories, empty minutes. Like, how is that as a GM? How do you balance of we're trying to win games, but we also want to go get a bunch of young guys that can help us down the road?
Yeah, we're in this apron era too.
Yeah, that's
so the rules, the collective bargaining agreement rules change so often that we can look back to the past, but the past didn't have the same restrictions that we had. So, I think it's the strategically to be able to, have the Rob Dillinghams, the TJ Shannons, the Yoan Berenjets, the Jalen Clarks. And then you can even say, look what Josh Minot's doing in Boston this year, and he's was part of the player development program here, so to thread that needle of winning, contending, I think it's very similar in some ways to what the Vikes are trying to do with JJ McCarthy. They're trying to win and have a quarterback. And I know nothing about football. Okay. I know nothing about the mechanics of it or anything, just the storyline. I think it's really important what we're doing, but because we do have backfill. We do have backfill and we do have depth that's going to be prepared to. You guys have no idea how excited I was watching the Iowa Wolves game last night.
Rocco.
He had 24 points. Yeah. He played great. And he's on, we're trying to ramp him up. He's on a minutes restriction. That stuff matters.
Yeah.
And the evidence across, make a couple guys across the league that have come here, had been part of the program and then moved on. Luka Garza's another one. He's producing in Boston right now.
Matt, I remember asking Josh Minot at Media Day last year before his 3rd or 4th season that would have been about, you could have been drafted by a different team and got more opportunity. You've been on this team that's gone to the conference finals, won a bunch of games. How does that just feel having been in it? And Josh was that this was so much better. The things I've learned from this experience have actually and frankly, like it didn't work out for Josh in Minnesota.
Yep.
Like with you guys, but for him, he said, at least to us, that was a much more meaningful way to grow and develop. I'm sure he was itching to play throughout the course of his time.
Absolutely.
But like I thought that was interesting. To Finch's point that you bring up, Kyle. Like I don't know. Maybe that's always been true, but it seems to be really true today. There's more value in being a young player on a good team, so as to establish habits.
And you can see it. You can see it. So maybe Josh hadn't participated in it as much as he would have liked to, but he had seen it, and he's seen the habits that those great players have how hard they work, what was required of him, and
how much he developed as a shooter.
Absolutely, his shooting went from one level to 2 levels above it, at least. And so, I mean, I think that's the point is that I know that there probably is a lot of passion for that segment of our team to get experience, but we also have to thread the needle of winning the games and putting our veteran players, Anthony, as the primary one in a position to see the conference finals, and then advance. So there's going to be there'll be a little bumps in the road or whatever, but I think from a planning standpoint, everyone's on pace, everyone's on track.
So to kind of build off that, this is a really dumb analogy, but like the way my friends talk about being a GM, it sometimes is like you're the one who's picking the ingredients, right? But then like the coaching staff is the one who has to cook the meal.
The Bill Parcells thing?
Yeah. So
the groceries.
What does it mean? And you can talk about specifically now or maybe a horror story from the past, but like how is that relationship now? Because it seems from the outside, when we talk to people, it's like as cohesive as one unit can be, having a coaching staff that's trying to win games and a front office that has maybe more of a long-term view. How has it been your experience here? Because since you got here, Finch has been here. It's like, how has that relationship been between, as they kind of call it, the guys up there and then the guys on the court?
Yeah, I think it's one of the best I've experienced in 30 years in the NBA.
Okay.
And that's not said lightly, and it's not said to be anything else other but fully transparent. Like I like talking to Chris Finch. And sometimes you get into the heat of the season and there's a lot of emotions involved and you can lose a couple games and sometimes the experience is not the greatest one. But I think we've established, because of the success we've had in 3 seasons, I think we've established that there's you can take a risk in a situation where there's a couple of us speaking and not be judged about it.
Yeah.
Or not be held against you if you're wrong. Everything is talked out. Everything is listened to. Everything is, and we're not going to be right, bat 1,000 on every single decision that we make.
Seems like you guys always walk out of the room
aligned.
Yeah, made a decision in the room, and I don't know. I'm not in the room. I don't know what's going on in there. But to your point I'm sure there's healthy arguing going on there. But it's like once we leave, like, this is what we're doing.
Yep,
I think we're playing this player, we're drafting this guy, we're signing this guy, whatever.
Yep. Tim is like a rabid competitor, and he has like a he has like the aw shucks type of thing, but he wants to win, and he wants to win desperately, and it drives him. And he also likes to have everyone's opinion assessed and everyone's opinion known and out. And so when we make a decision, we made it together, and we walk out the room and it's made together. And if we fail, we fail together. I don't think you're going to experience, at least in the short term, like if something happens, I don't think you're going to hear sources say that XYZ said this and that. I just don't. I'm not experienced that thus far. It's because of the tone that Tim and Coach Finch set in the building, but it's also the tone that the players set in the building. So I think we're in a really good spot from a communication dynamic standpoint, and the challenge is making sure that that's maintained.
I wanted to, as a way to kind of talk about a few of the different players, I wanted to ask about like the idea of you come to Minnesota and you kind of inherit players, right?
Yep.
The roster, that was the roster for
they won 46.
Yeah. Like that's now your group. And I would imagine probably every one of the players on that roster you scouted extensively. I remember you sent me that Naz Reid scouting report from his junior year.
Freshman year at LSU.
He sent me, it was good. I mean, it was crazy. But so you've studied all these guys. So I'm curious what that was like with Naz, like going back into your history of knowing him. Jaden was a top prospect in that class too. And then even you have Cat, Ant, and D'Lo that you inherit. All those guys are top picks in the two first overall.
Yeah, it was
picks in there too.
What's that like? It was really exciting having won 46 and then Anthony being here.
Yeah,
and coupled with the opportunity to work with Tim. I mean, that was the most exciting thing. I remember getting offered the job, and then really just kind of sitting down and watching that playoff series against Memphis and being really, really excited, because you don't know until you get in the building and you see how the dynamics that people have together and stuff, how it's going to work out. But from afar, it looked like it was set up to be successful. because of some of the foundation pieces that were here.
So you said, what if we trade half the roster?
Let's trade them all and 5 first round draft picks for Rudy Gobert. Yeah. So, and I think like that whole year was just such a blur, because there was an onboarding process, and you do have to learn how to work together. It's like not necessarily Tim and I, but just working with like all the dynamics and the people that were still here and stuff. So there was more to it than, just coming in and D'Lo, Anthony, Jaden, Kat, and Rudy. Like there was more to it than that. And, I think like one of the things that is a little bit of a badge of honor for me is like, I sweat the details and like everything happened on the ground floor. I think it's important because those details all add up into big things, and getting assessment and a chance to get on and assess those details was really important that first year. How are we working? How are we communicating? What are we doing? So to go on the ride we did that summer, from afar, Anthony was Anthony, and I was so lucky to be in Maui when he had 37 points in the second half against me. And it was incredible. I mean, people walked out and just that was the last game. There was a break, and all the scouts get back in the little room where they had it allocated for us, and everyone was just kind of like in stunned silence, having watched. So Anthony was Anthony, but I had scouted Jaden, I had scouted Nas, and Jaden was really, really intriguing to us in Orlando that year. We had a middle first round draft pick.
15.
Yeah, we had, and for whatever reason, but there was a lot of intentionality put towards assessing what he was going to be.
What did you think he was going to be?
Versus
what he is now.
It's such a testament to him. And like, I have to be like totally, he is one of my favorite players to watch, and he was one of my favorite players to watch. And he's just such a
high five.
Yeah. He was, I mean, you guys know this. He was a offensive prospect, and he was sitting in his own defense in Washington, and he had whatever had happened to him that freshman year had happened. They have 2 NBA players that are both, very good players now that were on that team. But having watched, he was so fascinating. And there was, dating back to high school at the Nike Hoop Summit when he came and played against the Team USA, and he was mad because he did not make the team. You knew there was something there.
Fire.
He had fire. And to watch him become what he's become has been, it's like a joy, because you believed in him. We believed in him, and we got in, and we've been able to watch him blossom into this, so it's a testament to his hard work and who he was and who he still can be, but to have had the opportunity to watch him through high school, watch him as a freshman in college, and then to see what he's become that's the best part of this job.
Today's show is brought to you by Skims, and we are excited to have Skims back as a sponsor for the holiday season. You know the drill. Skims is now available on the men's side of things, specifically men's underwear, and I promise you they would make for the most comfortable men's underwear you could gift to a family member this holiday season. My personal favorites are the stretch 5-inch boxer briefs because they're a two-way player. Wear one pair to the gym, another pair for lounging at home. With Skims, you don't need to have different brands of underwear for different activities. And if a stretch type of brief is not your style, Skims has you there too. They also have cotton briefs, amongst many other styles. I think you should try and find a pair that works for you. Be more comfortable. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com and Skims stores, and let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and this November, BetterHelp is encouraging everyone to reach out, check in on friends, reconnect with loved ones, and remind the people in your life that you're there. Just as it can take a little courage to send that message or grab coffee with someone on your team you haven't seen in a while, reaching out for therapy can feel difficult too, but it's worth it. It's almost always one of those things that leaves people wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? We know the holiday season isn't easy for everyone, and it's important to stay connected. We're healthier when we have community and when we have support. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is one of the world's largest online therapy platforms, having served over 5 million people globally, and it works. With an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for live sessions based on over 1.7 million client reviews. This month, don't wait to reach out, whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself. BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/DaneMoore. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DaneMoore.
You stole
Gotta be fun.
You stole my question. I just had one that just said Jaden McDaniels how awesome is he?
Yeah.
Because the 2020, like when Dane and I kind of got into doing this, 2020 is a COVID year, but like we knew more about draft prospects that one year. Like that was our one Matt Lloyd year, 2020, because we were
synergy all day, baby.
Because that was they had the first pick.
They had the first pick. So like I know.
And 28.
Yeah. I mean, I know. Killian Hayes
and they went up to 26
and 23. And Bolmaro, they took Jaden and Bolmaro all in the first round.
And that trade with OKC. But I mean, I know Killian Hayes' parents' names. Like we knew so much about that draft class. But I remember watching Jaden because I was out in Portland and like he played in Corvallis against Oregon State. And I remember, I think that game, it was like all offense, no defense. And I think he got teed up and I immediately fell in love. I was like, this guy can hoop and he might be a crazy person. But just like now looking at the roster and some of the guys that have developed, I mean, the old guys that have developed under your tutelage are still like Ant, Jaden, and Nas. And they're 24, 25, 26. So going back to kind of just the roster building, how do you on a daily basis when you're making these calls, you're keeping these connections, how do you go about the idea of like building around them? Because I would imagine in Orlando, half the time you're there, it's like, we just got to find the guy.
Yeah, we were trying to,
And now you have the guy, and I would imagine it's a lot easier, but there's also probably a daily burden of anxiety of like, we have the guy, we need to now build all the pieces around him.
Sure. And then, you know, woven in that is the rules. You
Yeah.
know, like we can play fantasy basketball and put all these great players together, and sometimes it's not too realistic given salaries and fitting together. So Nas was fascinating to watch too, because Dane knows I liked him in college, and I didn't know as much about him. I saw him play 3 times in college, and then when he got here and he started like workouts and we saw his handle and his shooting and all these, I was sitting there thinking, like, can this guy be like a small forward? You know, like so.
I still ask that.
Yeah, I know quite. There's no ceiling on what he could be, you know, and it's you walk in every day and you know that Anthony is there, and then how are we, you know, building the team around him, and a lot of it is, you know, the connections and the ability to piece together trades and all that sort of thing. We're lucky, you know, Tim's a master at that. Like he can assess another team's needs and try to allocate the right things to them that they need. And, you know, it's this puzzle piece that we're always kind of putting together. You know, today, for example, we got up early and just walked around Lake of the Isles and talked about getting ready for the trade deadline, you know, and it's, those are the best parts of my day when like we go to lunch or we just close the door and sit in the office and talk about, you know, ways that we can improve the team. So the constant narrative and constant chatter about our jobs and how we're doing them and assessing it leads to a great outcome.
It just kind of made me think, but all summer the organization kind of preached continuity, but it was all about the roster, right? Like bring a lot of the same guys back. But what you just said is, because you've had opportunities and to go talk to other people or other places and stuff, but like, how is the continuity of the front office just made this so much more enjoyable for you, which then I would imagine translates to making it easier to make big moves or anything. But the continuity, it's the stuff we don't see. How has that helped shape your career here?
I think it's creating a culture there with your coworkers where, again, we can talk about everything and anything, and you're creating an environment where there's no like judgment.
Yeah.
Anyone can throw out a wild idea. Anyone can throw out like a sane idea, and then we can assess it and go through it. The continuity thing was really based on when Julius came back from injury last year and the way that the team played 17-4. Then I guess we were like 35-10 or something over some stretch, including the playoffs. So we felt it was responsible to put give that team an opportunity to see, you know, what they could be over the course of a long season. I think as we sit here today, 11 games is not enough sample size to really assess it, but we're trending in the right direction defensively, and offensively we've been one of the top 5 teams in the league.
We want to kind of wrap it up with some rapid questions, some quicker questions, but I did want to ask about Rudy. And being a quote unquote Rudy guy, you know, and I feel like my experience in covering Rudy and now watching every single game he played in, and for the last 3 seasons, even in that first season, I very much shifted my understanding of Rudy Gobert from the Utah time to what my understanding of him was in Minnesota, and find myself being the person in conversations podcasts or whatever with friends being like, no, you don't get it. Like rim protection, all the dirty stuff.
You said something so great his first year here, and I always think about it. And fans were talking about, like, he had gotten off to a slower start and stuff. And you said, hey, just because he's there doesn't mean he deletes the rim. Like, there's not, I thought it was so important because he is, to the basketball purists and stuff, he's incredible to watch. Yeah. Like, he's so incredible to watch. He's a walking top 5 defense of his own volition.
Absolutely. And that I needed to learn that. I mean, it wasn't like I never watched him in Utah.
Of course.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, you get that appreciation from like the everyday of
that's right.
piece of it. And I felt like that shifted a lot for me. So I'm curious for you and with colleagues around the league and stuff, have you found yourself having those sort of conversations of like, well, I'm not sure you totally get exactly what's going on here with the Rudy Gobert situation.
I think...
Or what he brings.
Yeah, I think the majority of like my closest friends in the NBA, the people whose opinions I trust and everything, they understand it, and they understand it much like you. They maybe did not have an appreciation for it, unless you see it on a day-to-day basis. And then to the point that Kyle made earlier, the behind the scenes stuff, that guy is a monster worker.
Yeah,
and the amount of time he puts and effort he puts towards his body and winning and being a great player is, I mean, if people knew, they would gain a different appreciation for him. So the appreciation for him is based on, again, like having seen 3 seasons of it. And he's like a human deterrent. These great star players will drive in there, see him, and drive out.
Yes.
And there's you can't account for it necessarily. And some of the the regularized, adjusted plus minus, all those things, they can account for it. And by those measures, he's one of the best defensive players in the history of the league.
I think it's it's fascinating for me that a lot of people who are a lot smarter than me about basketball don't see it. Like, I've talked to scouts and stuff, and they do not have an appreciation.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert. Oh, we'll just put him in space in the playoffs.
And everyone sees the great shot the great players made over him. They don't see the 10 that he totally deterred. They don't
good
look
in
at
space.
Yeah, he's good in space.
He's legitimately good in space. So that's a stupid thing to say. If that is your argument, that's the wrong argument. You want to make the argument about Rudy in the playoffs? We can talk about the need to punish on the offensive side of the floor when they go small, which if you look at game 5 of the Lakers series, he did that. He punished it, and that's why you guys won that series in 5 games there. But it's I've had the most, like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills conversations with this, and it's like I'm literally talking to an NBA scout, and they're like, no.
Yeah, this old NBA person one time told me, like, a long time ago, if you're listening to the fans, you're going to end up sitting with the fans. and what that, to me, I've always interpreted that as, your opinion is probably the right one because you've studied it more than the general consensus has studied. It doesn't mean that the wisdom of the crowds is usually right and that sort of thing, but gaining an appreciation for him requires seeing every single game, how what he does and how
what happens when he's not out
there. That's right. Yeah. When he's off the floor. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, we make this gigantic trade again, not getting paid, no health insurance. And we went out to dinner with him after this trade. And I don't know, we were on the job maybe 2 weeks or something. And I'm kidding. I was getting paid and I had insurance. But we went out to dinner with him.
Not sure you do.
Yeah, I'm kidding. So
we'll check that.
We go out to dinner with him, and Dell had known him because he was an assistant coach in Toronto, in Utah. So he knew who he was and stuff. And I remember leaving that dinner, and there was like a little bar area, and he was going on to get some rest that night and stuff in the hotel he was staying at. And we sat in there, and I was just kind of sitting there. I said to Tim, like, I would have traded 9 first-round draft picks for that guy, just given how he presented himself that night and how serious he was. And, so we have been the lucky recipients of having Anthony here. And our goal every day has been to try to put him in a position to succeed. And when we got here and assessed the opportunity to get this player who, maybe he is a little bit underappreciated in the grand scheme of things, and put him in and drop him in, and we've been, the results have been what they've been the last 3 years.
My last category in my notes was fun questions, so I have to hit Matt with this one.
Please.
Because you have what I think a lot of people listening to this would deem as a dream job. I mean, you are the general manager of a pro sports team, but Dane and I are the general managers of fantasy sports teams.
Yep.
And this is all hypothetical, by the way, but like we'll be in our fantasy football leagues and someone will get Christian McCaffrey and I'll see it come across my phone and be like, I would have given that guy way more. So back to like all the connections, and I'm sure you're on the phone all the time, but like if a trade ever went down and you're like, I can't believe he just went for that. Like, do you have do you text the GM and be like, hey man, like we would have given you way more? Like what are some of those conversations behind the scenes with all these people that you're clearly have tight relationships with, but also too, like, do you ever just send them and be like, WTF? Like
there's a couple guys in the NBA I would do that too.
Okay.
But I think that kind of having professional decorum is important too, right?
Yeah, not as important in this space.
Fantasy football.
Yeah.
Fantasy football up for grabs.
Yeah.
Okay. I've stopped playing fantasy football a couple years ago, but my friend, one of my best friends in the NBA says, I don't play fantasy football because I play reality basketball.
That's a flex.
There is a GM fantasy football league out there.
I'm sure
NBA,
there is.
like NBA GMs.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I think there's some people I would do that with.
Okay.
But I think like professional decorum dictates that, I think we're in this 24-hour news cycle and Twitter and all this sort of thing where the feedback that these people get is so visceral sometimes. I would almost just say, hey, I can see what you were doing there. Maybe even if I didn't totally believe it, but just to offer like some solace for.
But does it ever surprise you that it like a player or something went for so cheap?
Well, I'll give you an example. We make the Gobert trade, and I had people like call me and like, why'd you do that? Like just out of curiosity, and I explained it, and I'm not like it's. I think we do live in this like judgmental type of a situation in pro sports, as we should, because there's so much money involved and there's these decisions. The owners are billionaires and things. There should be a process by which these decisions are made, and sometimes it's going to be wrong, sometimes it's going to be right, and sometimes it's going to be wrong. And when you're wrong, I don't need to hear. I wouldn't want a friend to come to me and say, man, you were so wrong about that. Like,
right.
I would rather them allow me to explain the process I went through to make that decision than.
Well, I think you won the Rudy Gobert trade, so I think I can say that personally. but that was kind of a softball to then kind of get to a real thing of, in this 24/7 news cycle and Twitter, like you see from time to time, like such and such team has checked in on whatever. Like, what is that? Because to my hypothetical earlier, like sometimes a player gets traded and you're like, I didn't even know that player was available. But like, you're just constantly kind of gauging the market to have like, you need to have your finger on the pulse of the league at all times to make sure that you can be as competitive as possible.
Yeah, I think I so respect the people that report on the NBA on a day-to-day basis that far be it from me to question sources or anything like that. I'm sure that everything is widely sourced. And sometimes the interpretation of checking in can just be, hey, you guys doing anything?
Yeah.
We're those conversations are just constantly happening, constantly evolving, constantly growing. And it all it is assessment of market assessment, market research. And that's Tim's like superpower. He can put together what a team here wants with another team there because he knows, and he knows how to put them both together. So I think it's an important part of the job, and it's something that's the cycle's ongoing. But I'm sure that the interpretation of checked in on someone could just be different than maybe our interpretation.
Like, is your house for sale? And you're like, no. And I go, all right, cool. I checked in with Matt.
I checked in.
His house.
Exactly.
Like, we're good.
My house is not for sale.
Yeah.
You could do another one of those.
Why does you have talked about the scouting and how passionate you are about it and how it's kind of been a lifelong thing. So now I just got to ask, like, for the fan, like, what is the war room like? Like on a draft night, you said on the second round and you have the first pick and you guys are making calls all day. Like, is it just an endless stream of caffeine and a ton of phone calls? Like, what is that like? And like, are your nerves spiked? Like, if you're the 6th pick and at 5, you're like, okay, I hope they don't take this guy. What is that night or that situation like?
It's Xanadu. It's
okay.
The best feeling you can possibly have, especially if you've been competitive and made an emotional investment in these players over the course of their pre-NBA draft period, So trying to think of a guy. I mean, you get so hyped up about the draft, and then you have to protect from draft fever too. And it's like, say, well, let's try to get 8 first-round draft picks and stuff. Like sometimes it just gets untenable. But and the experience is different over the course of the bosses I've had too. I've had bosses in Chicago, Orlando, and here in Minnesota. the experience is different. I don't think it's productive to be, insane and wild and throwing stuff around. We find it productive to kind of sit in a room and discuss what's available, what we're hearing, gather intel from other teams. And again, like trust-based intel. It's not just fly by night stuff. So we knew the teams that had targeted Yoan, for example.
Okay.
We knew, and we knew where we had to go to make sure that we got him. We tried to go there and we didn't, and we got him anyway. So like, that's really gratifying, to do all that work and to be talking over the course of the day and saying, hey, I think he's going to be there, man. I think he's going to be there. I don't know if he's going to be there. I don't know. We're trying to tap into every channel that we possibly can to learn.
But that's got to be completely different than the Yoan one, because like you had your line in the water and you're just hoping that like you could just wait long enough and then that right fish would bite. But a year earlier, you did complete opposite. It's like you said it the night that Tim and you guys drafted Rob, was like Tim wanted him and he went and got him, and you like had like the biggest smile on your face doing the media thing. But like, what was that experience like? It's like, okay,
that was exhilarating.
Okay,
that night that was exhilarating because it had been this. We made the trade with San Antonio.
Yep.
And my day one in Orlando, the person that helped me got off the plane and stuff was Brian Wright. And Brian Wright is the GM of the San Antonio Spurs now. He went to Detroit after Orlando, and then he went from Detroit to San Antonio. And he is, like, I can say confidently, if I died tomorrow, he would be one of the pallbearers. He is like my little brother. I love him. And they worked on that all day. And we got that. And it was, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half before the draft that we had decided this is what we're going to do. And again, like trust-based relationships.
Yeah.
We could have transparent conversation. And Tim's really close with him too, because they're from the same area. They grew up in the same area. So yeah, I mean, like, it was exhilarating and it was fun. And it was, we had no idea that we were going to be able to get that high in the draft. And it had been this constant assessment of Rob Dillingham for months, like 2 months, just talking about Rob Dillingham. And then to walk out of the draft with him, I can't even describe it. It was awesome.
Can I ask you, I've asked you, I mean, how long has the CBA been in place now? 2 months. I ask you about every like 6 months.
Yep.
So what are you learning about this? What have you learned in the second apron era and navigating those sort of things? It has been two seasons now.
Yep.
I bring this up because trading for Rob in that situation, trading up for Rob was at least somewhat motivated by the
positioning.
But the positioning, your salary cap positioning, because your only other thing you could have done with your money at that point was minimum contracts, or go get a player up in the draft. And so it was, again, one of those sliding door moments. If the CBA doesn't happen, how does Rob Dillingham wind up on the Timberwolves? Does he? Where are you just at with this collective bargaining agreement and navigating it? How much do you hate it?
I'm fascinated by it and fascinated to understand the theories that went into implementing it, because what it's created is it's really hard to make in-season trades now. And especially for these like giant, like we can all go on the internet or anywhere.
You can't.
And see,
it doesn't even work on the internet.
Yeah,
it doesn't even do the rules.
But we can all see the news and assess.
I thought we were talking trade machine.
Who's available and that sort of thing. And these giant in-season trades are going to be harder and harder to assess. My theory was that it was going to take the league about 3 years to recalibrate from the standpoint of like the salaries and the distribution of salaries over the course of the teams. Now we see a lot of teams operating this season in the first apron, which is less restrictive than it was than operating the second apron is where we were last year. So, I think the intention is to spread the talent across the league and prevent from these like super teams from evolving. But there's so many smart people in NBA front offices that they will find ways to manipulate it. It's just taking a little bit longer for the league to recalibrate all the salaries across all the teams. So the fascinating part and the thing that's challenging every day is coming in and figuring out like where we're at and how many active days do we have and all this like minutia of operating within the apron system is, I think it's such a great challenge. And I don't hate it at all. It's the rules, and it's our responsibility to learn how to function and operate within them. So that's taken the whole league time to figure out. But I think where we are now, we're in a pretty good spot where we've regained some flexibility. We've regained some actionability that maybe we did not have last year. So we'll just keep chipping away at it.
It is a sweat the details.
Yeah, it's a sweat the details
and
situation.
It becomes a big thing.
Absolutely.
Like, we're going to do that too, looking back, a couple of years from now on just
that's right.
Teams and they did this because of the minutia, the way that we look at some of the Thunder stuff now.
100%.
It's going to be a lot of it. Do you have a final one?
Yeah, I mean, for the listeners, we're recording this on a Friday afternoon before the Sacramento Kings game, before the Nuggets game. We'll publish this on Monday, but you're a basketball kind of junkie in the nicest way possible. And again, it means a lot for us to have you on this show. But because you've been so ingrained in the NBA, like we're getting ready for the NBA Cup tonight, just kind of what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's been a success? Because the court aside, or all the courts aside, like it has added some real juice to what traditionally in my life has kind of been a slower point of the season.
Sure. Yeah. I wore the green sweater so I could kind of blend in.
You wore a green sweater for the other game too.
Yeah, I wore the green sweater for the other one too. I want to do like a human green screen.
Yeah.
So I
That's
can sell
really
an
the
ad.
Casper.
Yeah. I want to sell an ad when I'm on TV. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. We looked at our schedule this year, and if we win the cup, we have a back-to-back. We play at home the next night against Memphis. I'm not sure that is optimal,
Right.
But the cup, at least the cup adds a little bit of, like you said, pre-Christmas, they were trying to figure out a way to, enhance the visual exposure for the league. And it's fun. It's cool. I didn't really understand it the first year. I'm going to be totally honest. I didn't understand the scoring and the positioning and luckily we have a couple guys in the office that are like totally up to speed on it. But now I do. And I understand what the consequences are tonight and the scoring differential and all that sort of thing. So we're in a cool group.
Right.
And we're going to play Oklahoma City the day before Thanksgiving in the final cup game of our group. And then we'll see what happens. But it is exciting to anticipate, like we have a dead spot on our schedule right now that we don't know who we're playing or when we're playing those games, so looking forward to it is that's kind of fun. It adds some intrigue.
And it seems like the fans have taken to it, but also too, like Jaden had that really funny quote the other day when he's like, well, we want the money. We want to go to Vegas. So
well, dude, that's what I was going to say. You know who knew how this cup worked the best? The year one, your two-way players. I was in the locker room.
Absolutely.
They were
Absolutely.
like, we got to win this. This like doubles their salary for a year if they win the cup. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No, I think that it's cool that the players are buying into it too. Because like you can have different colored courts and jerseys or all this promotional. I mean, all the games on Friday night tonight are cup games, but if the players don't take to it, and it seems like across the league, the level of play has been up a little bit, which is great, as long as you can find the game on whatever streaming service it is.
Yeah. Right.
Matt, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
This was maybe kept you a little bit longer too. Just appreciate you coming in, and I think on behalf of the fan base too, of getting to know you a little bit better and sharing some of those stories. This was really fun, and I'll bug you to do it again sometime.
Oh, I really, really appreciate. I'm a listener, so I'm a fan, and the chance to come in here has been awesome. So I really appreciate it.
Give us what's your critique, Britt or Jace or Chris's podcasting?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, not mine. We're good.
Well, I like to needle Jace because he's the greatest.
Well, he likes to needle you too.
Yeah,
he's
he's got great basketball takes. Great basketball takes. He'll watch college basketball.
Clip that.
He does. Like, you can put that on the open when Jason's on. I think they're all good in their own way because they all offer a different perspective, and to have this format where you kind of rotate people through and really just it's so deep dive on the Timberwolves. I don't know if the fans realize how lucky they are to have this type of exposure. We don't have anything like this in Orlando. I don't know. Maybe they have someone in Chicago that's doing similar, but I would be surprised if many teams have this type of service. So
thank you.
The detail you go into, I mean, incredible. And like I would imagine a lot of the people, like I bet you guys could do your podcast at First Avenue and get the same type of reaction that Zach. I'm serious.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they had a line out the door and everything, and
you got any connections?
No.
You know, it's a funny story to bring up Britt and to shout out Britt. So Britt worked at Sports Illustrated.
Yep.
In the early 2000s, was a staffer there for a while, and it was kind of like you were talking about before with Summer League. Once it got to be the end of July and August, like
yes,
summer was off, and that's like, as I understand it, through Britt in the writing space too, summers were pretty much off, and Britt at the time wrote about politics and music and did summers and stuff like that. He really focused on that in the summertime when basketball season was off. So Sports Illustrated offers to like whatever new contract but it's going to be 12 months a year rather than 8 months a year. And it's like doubles his salary. And Britt's so unique that he was like, no, I want my summers off. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, we're doubling your salary, but now it's a 12-month a year job. And Britt goes, no, I'm good. And he just leaves. Yeah. Which creates an opening at Sports Illustrated. You know who got hired for that job? It was their first job in national.
Zach Lowe.
Wow,
I just guessed. That was a total guess. Holy cow.
Right?
Yeah.
Talk about sliding doors. You know?
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Britt's perspective is because he's got so much he can reference, because he's
a historian. He's been here for 36 of the 37 years.
He knows John Randall.
Yeah. Yes.
John
yeah. So he has so much he can access in his memory. I just like listening to the stories.
Yeah. No,
but I can't thank you guys enough. It was really cool. I
appreciate
thank you very much.
I appreciate you very much. Again, this was awesome. Thank you for making the time. For Kyle, for Matt, I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing like